Welcome, Michael. Um, I'm so happy to have you in New York, but also here with me on this podcast. You're one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life, and I've met quite a few interesting people. Um, I think the first thing we should do is for you to tell everybody um, what you would like to be remembered as by in this lifetime, and describe that and then tell us what it is you do. First, what you would like to be remembered for as being.
I love that I wasn't prepared for this incredible epitaph question.
There you go. No, but think about it.
Let's see. I would like to be remembered as someone who was eternally optimistic, ever curious, incredibly imaginative, industrious, probably most of all kind, because I actually think that I'm a very strong and powerful male. That I think that my strength actually comes from a measure of kindness and empathy that I feel. Although I don't always get it right, but I think I'm driven generally by seeing the brighter side of the human spirit. I would like to be remembered as someone who made the lives of those he touched better, and we'll see how far those concentric circles of people I touch go in life. But creative.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it sounds just like you. And then, so how are you manifesting that now? I mean, we could talk a little bit about your latest, biggest project that I'm sure you have many after it, but and evolving from it. But I think tell us a little bit about how you came up with Area 15 and the whole process.
I'd like to offer an addendum to the epitaph also.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought of how people will remember me. And I think I'm good at trying to think about all of that. But in the mix and the balance of just hurtling through life and trying to accomplish all that you were put on this planet or lifetime to do, I think I'm good at the macro, and the micro actually is probably as or more important for me. There are two people that I'd most like to be remembered by in a very particular way, and that would be my two little boys. Because you have to balance all the work and all the things that your life is about with in my situation now at 50 with two kids, with these young minds that I can see are gobbling up everything. And it's hard to be away. So my priorities start to shift, and I hope that I'm remembered by them as someone who was present and there and kept his commitments and raised them to the light and was fun.
Well, while we're on them, excuse me, but I think I'm curious about your observations of young children and living in this time. We're in the true Aquarian age. They may be living on the moon or other planets.
They will.
And so I'm wondering if your observations are similar to mine, but how are you perceiving the way they learn and the way they just are thinking? And that might be different from what we remember children to be.
Oh, it's such a, Norma, you and I remember a time before 24/7 TV, before I was right on the cusp of color, but I remember that. There was still black and white TV being made when I was a kid, I was 50 when I had Maverick and 53 when we had Mars. And so I have a 3.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. And part of being, we love, I don't know whether we're futurists or whatever, but we love to peer forward. Part of peering forward is also looking back and remembering what was. It's impossible to calculate the reality, not that they're going to grow old in, but that the one that they're going to go to college in, if they go to college, and is there a reason for that? And we thought long and hard about where to put our little lad in school as they started it. And there are all these, bougie places that teach you 5 languages, and which is all great. Where all the hip people go in our place out in California. But actually, we put him in a nature school. And it's a fantastic decision.
What is a nature school?
Nature school. He goes 8 or 9 kids. They get in the van each day and they deploy to canyons or the beach or nature. And the entire class is spent outside, climbing on boulders and looking up, running through streams and getting dirty. And you have to send a change of clothes and all of this stuff. And what happens for 2 or 3 days, I think, for a kid, usually in school, is every day.
Yeah.
For them, he's going to have his whole life to be in a box if he wants to be.
Yeah.
And not very much time to actually learn what I think prepares us best for this moment in time. And so I'll get to the answer to your question. I think that was the question, is that I think the only thing you can learn right now are the archetypes and the old mythology and what we're making as the new mythology, because everything else is technical. Everything else soon will be able to be generated by an AI assist. The question then is what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's hot, what's not, what's going to move people. That's a little harder to that's ephemeral. That's the zeitgeist, right? It can be predicted by something algorithmic remarkably well, but then you get down to sort of the, Captain Kirk type of thing.
My friend Elizabeth was telling me about, she's 88 now, and she's amazing. And she was talking about the children that are being born now and how so many of them will be living off the planet and that they are already prepared for it. They have the ability to, they have no memory of anything earlier, right? So any memory is being collected now, but it shows you how soon our efforts will be to be, and we are seeing it already, to be on another place.
When I finally did get to college, I remember filling out some sort of application about what it was I'd be in life at some point. And I said, a space ambassador, which everybody thought was really funny. But I believe that 1 million people will be living in space by the time we pass on.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, it'll be 100,000, but it's not going to be 7.
Yeah.
We're headed that way.
Yeah.
And short of wiping out the planet, thermonuclear war or something, that's where
whatever.
we're going.
Yeah. But I also, on that same note, was thinking about the food we eat now and how if you sit down to dinner with a bunch of people and you go to a great restaurant and there's all of this beautiful, creative food, and I was thinking it is so not practical on so many levels, from how we're growing it and how we will do that, the environment, the quality of the food, is it still as good and is it healthy, that we're really I think, going to be eating food that's beautiful looking, but not in the same way. It will be packed with vitamins and nutrition. It will have energy. It will somehow be connected to stem cell treatments that you're getting to keep your body healthy. And then you're eating this food that is, we won't even call food anymore. Remember Tang, when they made Tang?
I still take Tang to Burning Man.
You do not.
I do. I love it because I like to get like a quarter inch of sugar at the bottom.
But the idea, I remember the first time hearing about Tang, that it's not really food, but they have it in outer space. But think about everything now when I have dinner with people and I don't cook. I mean, I'm as close to getting into these little objects that are nutritional, but seeing meat and all of this stuff, even vegetables, like, where is this going to be grown? How are we going to do this? How is the earth going to handle this? We're not. It's almost an impossibility.
Yeah, I think, and food will be beautiful. Food is beautiful
in a
now
different
because
way.
an orange is an intrinsically beautiful thing. A banana, I defy anybody on Fifth Avenue or anybody in the world to come up with something as efficient or beautiful as a banana in terms of its design, its color, its packaging, the way you eat it. It's got a handle. It's
covered and protected.
Absolutely, it's incredible. I've always thought that bamboo, I don't know where I heard it once, but bamboo is actually going to be one of the most important building materials in space, because you can travel with a forest of it in the palm of your hand. So I think that there will be, yes, food will be engineered, and yet I think that there will be a reason for growing certain things, especially things that have just such a symbolic. If we're going to settle a new planet, how could we do it without apples? We would be denying ourselves the entire eating myth.
But I do think the what's to come, like, how is this going to evolve? Healthcare, everything, just the idea of stem cells and the future of it. I interviewed an incredible woman who's on the cutting edge of stem cell. And you're cutting edge of stem cell, and just the idea that she is seeing that her 2 twin children can once a year have stem cell to, after they're examined, to just re-energize and protect themselves for the next year. And every year you keep checking and protecting. Amazing.
Oh, brave new world.
Amazing. So I want to go back to Area 15.
Yes. You made it.
Area 15 I've been hearing about it for how many years? 5 years at least, before, maybe even earlier. And I thought, this sounds like a drawing that's a dream. And it's meant to come to life. But can it? Because the drawing is just sort of like, in my mind, it's kind of like a doodle, like you're on the phone and it's almost happening and your hand is just following and your mind is moving your hand. And that's the way I imagine you created it. I don't know if it's true, but probably knowing you, it is pretty much that.
100%.
And then actually getting there and seeing it, and I thought, oh my God, it's exactly that. It's a drawing come to life with people in it, experiencing it, and having interactions with each other, and a human place where I think people were taking pictures with their phone, but to be honest, there was less phone use and more people interacting, which I was so excited about. So congratulations for sure on getting your drawing to come to life. So You've got to talk about it. And everybody knows Area 15, by the way. Here, I said, I was at this place. I don't know if yeah, of course we've heard it. And like, so wow. People do know what's happening there.
So it's the boy with the magic brush, everything he draws comes to life. Norma, I can only say that your reaction means the world to me, because I think of you as, and I know you to be somebody who gets it, and you see around the corners of what something is to how something might have come to be and where it's going and what its true intention and design is and all of these things. And hearing your reaction to it makes me all the more excited, because we're just getting started.
Yeah.
This is not a fixed thing. It's a living, breathing, I don't even know what to call it.
Experience.
Sort of entity. It really is. From its inception, it was that. It's meant to be more DNA than it is a prescriptive object that sits. It's an ever evolving machine, and that's, I think, the only way that you could create something at this moment in time.
So what was in your mind, what originally, and it could be different now, because for me, every day I see my purpose has nuances. So your original purpose, what did you want it to do? And first of all, where is it?
Area 15 is in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's about 7 minutes from the Strip, on some land that was about an 80-acre parcel, I guess, but 16 of it right now are Area 15, and it's expanding north. It's a world of exploration for curious and adventurous alike, and it combines everything from immersive worlds to virtual experiences to dance to touch to yoga to all these things. We've had almost 8 million visitors, I think, since we opened. We opened in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes, you did.
And that was thanks really to our mutual friend Winston's leadership. He said, we're not deviating. We're going to give the world hope right now, and we're going to get this project done and keep everyone employed. And I think I should frame the questions that you asked me in such a way as to say, I can answer my part of it. But of course, something of this scale is truly a collaborative effort.
Right.
And it was only possible because of a confluence of meetings and moments and discussions and just I suppose destiny, you'd say, in a way. You asked how we came up with the idea for it. And, actually Marty introduced me. We met through Bob, at iHeart.
Yeah.
And Marty and Winston were over, and they'd seen the tunnel and the headquarters of iHeart Media, which we designed, with the studio designed with others. And so Marty said, you should take a look at that land out in Vegas. And the land had been purchased many years ago, but they were continually frustrated by the monotony of everything that was being presented as an idea. And so it's important to know that we didn't come up with the idea for Area 15 and then go looking for a place at all. We did what the studio does, which is to solve a very complex problem creatively. The complex problem was, what would you put on this land this close to billions of dollars of weaponized entertainment?
Absolutely.
I mean, everything that's been done has been done. What could possibly be additive?
Right.
And that's where the brief began. And credit to Winston, who's, the fearless leader and CEO.
Yeah.
It was an open slate conversation. And so I'd like to think that, as with so many of our projects, particularly when they're with somebody like a Bob or a Winston or a Tony Malkin or any of these people, that what we're creating is in some way, shape, or form a portrait around them and their personalities, and what we bring to bear to the picture also. So that was the heart of it, is what would you put here? And then what would you put here that was additive? And then what would you put here that would inspire the leadership and everybody else that would join this picture to add in the stone soup sort of way, so that it could achieve the critical mass and get over the impossible, which is having anything of that scale built and to just be able to create it.
Right. And describe the things you want to people who probably haven't seen that before.
Oh my God, Norma, it was like talking to
another language,
like having three heads.
I know.
Immersive worlds didn't exist at the time. There was really Sleep No More and Meow Wolf had just come up, Teen Labs in Japan. But you said immersive entertainment or immersive retail, and you looked crazy.
Right.
You looked crazy. Honestly, even with 8 million visitors, wild acclaim, all of these things, I think a lot of people still stare past it because they don't quite understand what it is. And what it is, in my mind, it is a place where a person living in this day and age can experience many different realities in one place to expand their understanding of the largely digital world that we live in, or the future, have some sort of sense of it not being hostile, that is maybe more of an embrace rather than your doom. And that's actually, I think, the machinery that'll be in place there. I touched touch screens for the first time in my life at Epcot in 80 something or another.
Right.
But in that moment, I was really predisposed to exploring because we'd been at Disney all day.
Yeah.
And so in ways, Area 15 is that way also, but we're just getting started.
So
this is the foundation.
Yeah. My initial thought of, if you just describe it and there's no doodle, it would be that it would be very clinical, kind of in the sphere kind of thing, but it's so happy and colorful and fun that it sort of takes away that edge of that it's all of these tech things and all of this stuff is going to happen, but you're having a good time and the color is just so great in that space. I think it's just powerful, and I think it's really important because we all need happy. We all need games and fun experiences, and we need color. And that the joy of it is really sort of medicine for our time. And I think, numbers of them are required because going there can really it's sort of like going through treatment. Like you've gotten your treatment. Now you can go for a while and you can come back and get treated again and you'll have more toys and fun for people.
I wonder if the description you just gave of Area 15, where it starts off as rather clinical and it's the colors are this and that, and then it's wild. I think if you replaced our names with that would probably be a pretty good description of us also. It's,
Absolutely.
And it's by design.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Absolutely.
The reason that there's a post-apocalyptic overtone to it, or that the building on the outside is this stark bunker.
Yeah.
One is it's buildable.
Yeah.
So two, it's just it's being able to leverage a basic object and instill a little bit of creativity in it, and then give the visitor and the viewer the respect of filling in the blanks. Because when we do that, we lean into a story and we're more engaged with a story. So what we don't show is as important as what we do. And then the other piece of the puzzle, of course, is that it is full of joy. So I like to, we've said it many times, with some non-creative group of people built the bunkers that are Area 15, and then it was taken over by wildly creative people. And that design tension, I think, is how we are able to solve things in a utilitarian way, and then how we're able to solve them in a colorful way. So it's both pragmatic and it pulls at those levers, which is important.
Yeah, it's almost opposite of what this Las Vegas place is, where it's all show and on the outside and all of this stuff. And then the contrast is this bunker that has this otherworldly entertainment that is nothing like at all like Las Vegas.
This is why the archetypes are so important to study, because that was the solution. And the solution was asymmetric.
Yeah.
We couldn't outspend, but two things when you're playing high-low, the high hand and the low hand. Now we're not low in the sense that it's lacks for anything, really. It's just that the game structure is set up as high-low.
Yeah.
So if we play the opposite hand, we win the pot also.
Yeah. And that's what the contrast is actually very exciting. And I was shocked at
the demographic is wild, isn't it? Just
and
wildly.
People from everywhere, in just not only every color hair, but from farm people who are just decided they're going to come to Las Vegas because it's sort of like a place where people from the middle of the country can go, anybody can go, or people who never really are not urban at all, or urban people who've never had that experience. It was really informative in so many ways. I was really taken by the contrast of personality.
And of course, they're part of the story. It's just a
set,
and that cross-pollination of all these different people, and
absolutely,
we're just about to double the size of the campus now. It's expanding north. There's a 747 that used to go out to Burning Man. The hulk of that is out at the Speedway, and it will be coming into this. It'll anchor the center.
You need to do a film of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
Yeah. Universal is doing their first park experience off of their property, and so that's going to be incredible. I mean, it's a whole.
So you mentioned Burning Man, and I know you're a Burning Man enthusiast and have been a participant for many years. What about Burning Man gets people to want to be a part of it every year? And what about Burning Man do you think has been translated? Not the more of sort of the soul of it. What do you think has kind of moved forward to area?
I think with Burning Man, you can only tell your own experience, and then there are thousands of others. They're not millions, though. It's really remarkable that it's a shot heard around the world, and probably fewer than 1 million people have ever attended.
Really?
Yeah, if you count up the repeat visit, I think.
Really?
How many times 68,000 is the number today, but it used to be 25,000. So how do you compound it or mathematically work it out?
Yeah.
But it's a low number of people who've actually experienced it. And yet it's had a profound cultural impact.
Yeah.
I think that, so I can only answer from my point of view. Every time I leave the burn, I've been 11 times, since 2008. So missed a few and along the way. But, every time you leave, you sort of ask yourself, how could you take a dimension of this out into the world? I think we're called upon, in fact, to try to live the spirit of it in the world. And that spirit is creativity, and picking up after yourself, and being open to other people's ideas, and just the basics.
Yeah.
We, by no means, and no one could create Burning Man elsewhere. Or at the scale that it is. But I think that you're asked to go out into the world and, bring a little of that fun to it. And so I think that Area 15 does have links to it. Obviously, a lot of the artists that I know and love and work there, with over the years, we've managed to work together on the outside world, and then been able to bring them into lots of different projects that I've worked on. And there are art features there. So that's one thing. I think Burning Man just creates a sense of relationship between a group of people that transcends many, many other obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find yourself in a meeting or a boardroom or something, and then you realize halfway through the meeting that person goes there, it sets up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was walking down a street with someone, and, a friend of mine years ago, and I said, it's what the Illuminati failed to create. And he looks at me and says, or did they?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is not so. But there's this,
Yeah.
I don't think there's this common thread. And it's an incredibly supportive community. Somebody will get hurt or injured across the world, and within hours, it's been worked out that the person's okay and the person's going to get. And I think in a world that's stripped of, well, half the world stripped of its religious direction and all of those things, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a particularly religious person at all, and yet I do think that one can throw the baby out with the bathwater when you strip away how groups of people can mourn, how groups of people can celebrate, how groups of people can support each other. So you don't have that 10,000 year or 2,000 year structure, whatever it is. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can navigate, but you don't have the same sort of community.
Yeah.
And so it's a very powerful community that happens. And it's an embracing and inclusive and accepting.
I've been thinking about the idea of religion and community more and more. I was raised Catholic. My family is Lebanese, so we're Maronite Catholics, but Maronite Christians, which is early Christian. But like most people in our culture, we step away and question religion sometimes, and maybe step away and not re-enter. But I find myself through the years praying and meditating all the time. And I think prayer is important, and meditation is a kind of prayer for me. But I feel like just exactly what you said, having a sense of community is a very big part of religion that I think we miss if we don't have religion. And maybe religion, and religion still exists for a great deal of our population, and they are so benefited by it because they have the community, they have each other. There's something about that when we're kind of split up right now in just in our country alone. But I miss the idea of community, because in the 70s, we had community. We didn't have interruptions of technology, which we both are addicted to. But there was a lot of touching, and I'm looking through old pictures and I'm seeing we're all always together, a community, like not exactly Burning Man, but we would go camping together. We would do all these things together. And that community was very tight. We looked out for each other. We spoke to each other. We made sure to see each other in a very communal way. And I feel as though, and I'm not sure that religion is the right word for what I feel is important, but I think the idea of community is really important, and having a place that you can go to the community to be a part of is key, which brings me to the experience of this parallel community that you brought me to in your studio.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself as I was saying this, that was a community.
Yeah.
Is it still a community?
Yeah. So things shift and change.
Explain
you're speaking
what
of high
it
fidelity.
is. High fidelity. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking about this in anticipation of our talk, because it's been 5 years since we spoke, and 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting. At the time we were speaking about VR, of course, we touched on AI. 5 years later, AI is here.
Yeah.
And I'm always, it always makes me chuckle when friends or colleagues or people will say, "Oh, you were talking about that stuff and it never went anywhere." And I think to myself, that's what happens when you don't study history. You don't realize that change happens incrementally.
Right.
It compounds, and in that compounding, it expands at a wild rate when it starts to do it.
Yeah.
And each of these things, I think people will say, "Oh, well, VR was so 2020 or 2018, right? 2018 was
Right.
VR, 2020 was digital objects
That's
and
right.
NFTs, 2023 is augmented or whatever it is." The reality is that we're going to look back on this period of time and know what we know, which is that we're living in the bell curve of all of these foundational pillars coming together to be able to bridge this gap.
The next.
To wind back to whatever,
right.
My kids are going to live in, for better or for worse. I hope they have the nature too, and that's preserved and there.
Well, now it's part of their memories.
Yeah, exactly. And so high fidelity. Philip did a very interesting thing. He, about a year and a half after, actually about 6-8 months before COVID, I was talking to him. He said, "No, I'm shutting it down." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, let me show you a statistic." And he went onto his computer, and we're sitting in San Francisco somewhere. And he said, "How many people do you think are in a virtual world right now, worldwide, in a connected virtual world?" This is 2019 or something like that. And I said, "No." He said, something like 5,980.
Wow.
In a virtual world. And he said, "So I can't build the world for that many people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have 1 million at least to have it be anything that can sustain." And so that absolutely incredible, beautiful creation is mothballed someplace.
Sleeping.
Is sleeping. It would be interesting to know in a parallel history, if he hadn't turned it off right then and COVID had happened, there would have been a very different.
It might have taken it forward very quickly.
Yeah, but honestly, it goes on in the work of many of his co-collaborators and creators who are out and working in that world and sphere. And I think it's all sleeping.
Explain that experience. Starting with your magnificent avatar with your father's jacket, the whole thing.
He was wearing a Tommy Nutter. My avatar was wearing my dad's Tommy Nutter Savile Road jacket. Yeah. I know it only took a few moments actually. What was the name of that group? There are a few different places of it. I can't recall. I went downtown, walked in, snapped by, such and such all the pic cameras at once, and then it turns it into a marionette. And I think we'll be wearing lots of different versions of those things. Mm-hmm. You'll have one at this age. I'll have one that's older. I'll have one that looks like whatever. So what we had there was going into the world of high fidelity, which must have been about 400 or 500 people who would regularly gather and build these amazing worlds. And they were fully immersive VR in which we could fly and meet and it was, just absolutely incredible. I still have tingles about it.
I will never forget it. Yeah. I will never forget my visit to your studio, and you put this apparatus on me, and I was so excited. I couldn't breathe. I was so excited. And going into this place, I was in this other place that wasn't this place, and totally giving myself up to it, and meeting these people or things or costumes, and like everybody had an avatar of fantasy or reality or whatever. And I remember I didn't have one. So you took me to a place that had choices of avatars, and I chose one that I felt had my vibe. She had a cat suit on, and then we bought
ephemera, just different props and things like that. Yeah.
And then we traveled through this incredible place, which was a community of people who gathered. I think people were gathering in the square for, I'd say people, but are they people?
Yeah.
They're people.
There were people behind everyone.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like it was another thing. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
But, and then you could zoom up and look down, see people. You could, be next to someone who I remember somebody came really close to me, and you kind of protected me. I was like, whoa, that's really close. That like I'm not sure who this is or what. And there was some kind of costume happening, and it was unbelievable. And I remember when we finished, I had to hold on to your sofa because I felt every cell replacing itself back to where it began. And I needed time to just come back from that. But that experience just opened my mind to all the possibilities of something like that. Somebody maybe that always wanted to be a dancer and can't dance in this world, but could go into that world and be a dancer, or all of these dreams and things that you want to do, but are not happening in this life happen. And it was, I am so grateful that you invited me to be a part of that. I was just absolutely blown away.
Well, it was a very special moment for me. Also, I was so excited to have you there. And I've got to say, in fact, I just wrote to Philip the other day. It's important to find out what he's doing next. That man has a singular mind, and it's a human-centric heart.
I mean, what is his name?
Philip Rosedale.
Yeah.
Philip Rosedale.
Philip Rosedale needs to come up and tell us what he's doing because we like the way he thinks. Yeah. You know, you talked about how long the process is for things to kind of evolve. And then when it gets to the point that it just explodes. My first experience, and I think I told you this, my first experience with technology was 1964 on a UNIVAC computer at Northwest Orient Airlines.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. And I could see everything that was happening on the plane. I could see if a wheel fell off, how many people were on the flight, where they were going, if something happened, a change, I knew everything. And that was just, and here I was really, I already had opened my store and I was working there to get clothes from London and travel. But at the same time, what is this? This is really amazing. I didn't, in the 60s, I couldn't manifest in any way how this would kind of build, or what would happen with it. But it's that long ago.
So,
yeah.
You see, it's these aha moments that we have. I find myself sitting in rooms and talking to a lot of powerful people who have the ability to pull the levers and triggers on whatever their company and corporations are going to do next. And I'm always amazed by, well, one, the really great ones actually know how to clear the clutter they focus on the thing that they need to achieve in the first and second and fourth quarter. And they're dreaming about the future, but they don't disrupt the ship to get to the future.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing to be able to do. So not be so excited or distracted by everything that might be, and realize that adoption isn't going to come tomorrow. That the business was going to have to, look at how long Meta is taking to actually get people into VR, and they have untold billions of dollars to pour into it, and still humanity is just at the edges of it all, right? The Apple headset will have its impact, and something will come along which will fuse all of these things in a moment. But to go back to that, your moment of being able to see all the possibilities, that's, I think, what I get most excited about. Is I'm fortunate enough to get to see a lot of the possibilities, and they make sense for the things I'm designing today or will soon design. And so what I look at and I see right now, and what I would encourage all businesses and everyone to understand, is that not everyone, but a lot of people are going to very soon open their eyes and see the world differently, because it will be enhanced and augmented. And we've seen all the precursors of this are coming. But high fidelity actually didn't die. High fidelity turned into something which is VATM, which is a project that I've been involved in actually Philip and Eric Pollier, are both involved in it. Again, all the building blocks have to come into place. So you can build a world, and you can be a person in that world, but then you need your identity federated. And then if you're going to be a person in that world, you need to have a wallet in which the digital objects that you have aren't just scattered about and left, and you can have one or trade with another person. And so all of VATM for the last 7 years has been about rich, intelligent digital objects, not speculation NFTs, but actual things which you can pluck out of the air, a la Pokemon, but actually own and have and use for utility. I can find one in the air. I can take it into a Starbucks and get a coffee, a real one. So I've been able to find a digital thing and get a real one for it. I can drop all of those things into a world. I mean, yes, High Fidelity's little community didn't go on under the name of High Fidelity, but lots of things broke off. VATM was one of them. VATM regularly hosts, thousands of people can meet in a space. Google just did a meeting with 10,000 people over a course of a few days in a VATM space, in which each person was able to roam around and pick up objects and interact with all the other people who were at that meeting or group. We're just all on the cusp of it fitting into our regular day. And as you said at the beginning, it's not really for us. We're the folks that get to see it happen. But it's going to be a child who was just born, or who was born 10 years ago and enters into the workplace in 10 years in a world that it will be as mysterious to them as our great-grandparents would think of as what we regularly digest.
That's why longevity means a lot to me.
See it all.
I do too. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I really do want to live to 120. I originally said that I wanted to live to 120 because I thought if I made that my goal, I would try to be healthy and try to do the things that I needed to do, so that if I made it to 119 or, whatever, it would be further than if I said, okay, well, let's see. I don't know. Whenever I die, I die. I'm like, no, I need to push the envelope. And I feel like you and I should be able to see some of this. We have to. I mean, I cannot believe that I am going to miss any of this. I need to see it. So I'm like, for making that happen.
And we'll be, down. We were talking about Proxy the other day. There will be versions of us also.
Proxies,
Do they have consciousness?
I don't know. What do you? Now that we're talking in that zone, what are your thoughts about hallucinogenics and all of the experimental, not what used to be experimental in the 60s and now is really being used seriously for PTSD and for mental health and for stress relieving and all of that. What are your thoughts about?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. That said, I suppose there are, all of these things were powerful and guided at one point, right? And there were shamans and people who were the keepers of the flame who would sort of guide you through the process. Right. And again, like we were speaking about with religion, a lot of it then also just became, just do it and see what happens, which is fine also. Yeah. I think, candidly, my life would be very different had I not experienced things like that. I don't think in any way better. I think my life is better for having had those experiences or having had those experiences. I'm changed. I'm also fortunate enough to not be somebody who falls down the rabbit hole and doesn't get up and work the next day or whatever. Yeah. So not everybody's like that. So obviously, just like any mind-altering anything, it can have its downsides. But the limited knowledge that I have or understanding of the brain, and it is limited because I'm an artist or creative, but what I do think is fascinating is that, as I understand it, especially with the PTSD, our brains have developed over time in layers, and our reptilian brain we share with reptiles. The earliest part of it, right down in the heart and center of it. And that's our fight for flight. And it makes us jump or shock or get a sense that somebody's going to do us wrong or, et cetera. And that as our brains have developed past other creatures, we have the ability to tell time. We have the ability to know, what the future will bring or imagine what it will be or memory, all these things, which a dog doesn't have. But the part of our brain that is like a dog's is just like a dog's. It's able to have loyalty. It's able to recognize. It's got pattern recognition. It can't sense time, but that's because we have an extra layer there. So what I understand is that you are actually able to reprogram a thought, because our memory is not like a movie. A movie is locked in time. Once it's on the celluloid, every time you play the movie, it plays exactly as it did, which is not how our minds work. If I'm asked to remember the last time you and I saw each other, my brain sends out a little message that says, reassemble this picture for me. It's Norma. It's going to be under friendship. It's going to be under futurist. It's going to be under this. It's going to be connected to that, and it reassembles the picture. But not exactly as the memory happened. It's based on the needs I have at the moment. If I'm remembering my birthday party and I'm hungry, I'm going to remember the cake. If I'm remembering my birthday party and I'm lonely, I'm going to remember the friend that I had there. And so because that little script goes out to reassemble the memory, you can intersect with that moment and reorganize the memory. Yeah. And I'm not sure I would want to reorganize. I mean, I'm actively doing it. We struggle to remember things as best we can. Yeah. But it's an entirely subjective, ever-evolving thing.
And this is a topic that I've been very interested in because I have an archive, and I have an archive for the company that's 56 years, and we're doing an AI project with it. But in digging through the archive, of course, everybody's finding pictures of things throughout my life that, I'm not one that tends to look back, except it's a reference for the future. But looking at pictures and that kind of thing is like, I don't know. But the interesting thing is, I've thought deeply about this. I look at the picture. I remember certain things. And I look at another picture and I look at them all, and then I realize I don't remember the emotions or the inner workings of my mind at the time. And I've been thinking about that and thinking about that. Like, why can't I remember those things? And I realized that we'll finish this conversation and you and I will remember it. And then you'll go outside and you'll meet somebody, and that may change your life. It may change the way you think about everything. And I might do something and it can have an impact on me in a certain way and change. So all of a sudden, this moment, as we look back to it, and more things are happening and happening and happening. And all of them are the new evolved you. That's a constant work in progress. So this person here has to remember this through the lens of all of these experiences.
Yes.
And so how can you remember that emotion moment? Because it was only a short period of time. This we can remember, but it's wild, right? Every circumstance after that is the new you, the new you, the new you. And so at my age, looking at a picture of me at 22 or 19, I remember that girl, but I can't remember what was in her head because it's my head now. And that was one moment in time. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And I could speak, I think, with you for hours on this one thread. You know, one thing that always amazes me is that when you begin to look at the photograph and remember it, you start to unlock all these compartments. Really fascinating that you don't really think are there. We do it with the one-of-a-kind objects that the studio still builds for some families. And you'll see a person's whole world start to take shape again.
All right.
Casting their mind back 50, 60 years. Especially if they do it in a group of other people who remember what they remember, and
Right.
The matrix starts to really fill. I suppose in nature, we'd try to answer the question, to what purpose? What utility would there be to looking back 60 years to your 19-year-old self, or whatever it is, or 50 years, or whatever it is. I'm terrible at math. What would be the value of that? When I speak with young people, someone who's 18, 19, 20 years old, especially if they're artists or creative, and they want to talk a little bit about how it all, how will it all work out? How will it make sense? I'll usually say, listen, we're going to have a conversation, but to the extent that I speak from my home movie, it's going to sound like, it's going to be like,
totally.
It makes everything I'm thinking about, worried about, concerned about, fulfilled by, all my projects, all my whatever, they got zero applicability to your 20-year-old self. I'm 35 years out in front, and it's absolute gobbledygook. So tell me where you are. I'm scared. I don't know if it'll all work out. I'm talented, but I can't get this. And all that stuff. That's my 20-year-old self. Yeah. For sure. Without the journey, it's useless. It's like reading the book, but never taking a walk, but the book was important.
Yeah.
That's where the inspiration came from. But so I think, I'm not sure I'm answering your question. I think I'm opening up more of the conversation.
I have the same conversations, and I mentor designers, and they're, my story has nothing to do, in no way is helpful, except yes, you're scared. Yes, you fake it. Yes, there are some givens, but I think, Sam Altman just had an incredible quote about determination. that I fear to repeat because he said it so beautifully, but it's really, there are certain key words. If you are passionate about something and you have determination, it will override somebody with more talent. It will override somebody that's smarter. It will override everything because that energy is so powerful with determination.
That's Van Gogh and John Singer Sargent. John Singer Sargent, brilliant painter. Brilliant. From the moment he could draw, brilliant. And beautiful paintings. Ain't nothing compared to Van Gogh, who couldn't draw.
But there you go.
But there you go.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that's what's recorded in the paintings. I think the other piece of the puzzle too. Oh, it just went blank. Poof.
You weren't supposed to talk about it.
Oh no, I know. It came back. I love, and I'm not going to tell this properly, but I think I love in Greek mythology. So back to the why it's important to have the archetypes. They just help us frame our mind, right? Get around a story. In Greek mythology, on Mount Olympus, there's this room of crones, and the crones all have these balls of yarn or thread, and every time a human is born, they throw the ball across the room, and where it lands, that thread intersects, runs parallel, is crossed by all the other threads that are out there. And that's your life in the moment of birth is preordained, like that. Every meeting, every intersection, every thread that you'll cross, appropriate for the name of the podcast.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But anyway, the one thing about those threads is that was your life thrown out, but the gods could come into that room and toy with the threads. And they could move them to other people or break them. And at the end of your life, they'd come and snip the thread, and that was the end of the story.
So how much, I often use the word the universe set this up. The universe impacted this. The universe, I use that because I really believe that the course of so much is sort of set. And if I'm not supposed to go there, the universe is going to make it so awful for me that even if I insist, it'll be so awful that I finally have to go the other way. And I find I'm more aware of it as I get older. Right now, there are so many things that are happening that the universe is protecting me, the company, what we're doing. It's pushing us in these new directions. How much of that do you believe? What is your universe reference?
I absolutely believe that we can align ourselves with the energy of it to good, to light, to flow states. I don't spend much time worrying about things because that's that fight for flight thing about with the reptile. It's very useful for getting away from a lion, but if you continue to worry once you've escaped the lion, you're just worrying for no reason. So again, it's not to say that those fears and things aren't an important piece of the puzzle, but I don't see the world as a hostile place, even though I know that it is. It just doesn't serve me to, it's not efficient for me to look at it in that way. So I'm always looking for, I try to accept as much as possible those little moments of that. I think it's that path that you're describing. Right. You just see them as little twinkles. And it's whenever I appreciate just the beauty of sky or the building I passed this morning on the way here triggered a memory of my past. And I just realized I'm on the right course because these things are happening. Yeah. I cannot predict when some angry God will come and snip the thread, or move the things around. That's okay. But I can know when the traffic lights are red and when there's a slump and a slug, and then I can do things about that. Yeah. And the biggest thing is just some sort of action.
Yeah. But I think that there's there are clues and there's information that we get, that, we should be aware of, right? Like there's being in touch with there's messages or like, this is not going to be that good if you go there. And even if no matter how much you want it, if you pay attention, and I'm not sure how to describe these messages or how they come to us, but I know that they're very much a part of everyone's life, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
you just have to, but paying attention, instead of being blind about it, I think is really important.
One of my dear friends taught me the affirmation long ago. Whenever I wanted something, to say this or something better, but to not take out of the hands of the universe the something better, because I might not get the thing that I want.
Yeah.
But that's because I don't understand the thing that I actually need.
So what's your dream for, you talked about kindness and you talked about really bringing pleasure to people and happiness to people. What's a dream that you have that you would like to see happen, that whether you create it or are part of it, or that you would like to see as part of a reality in lives, in everybody's lives, in certain people's lives? What would that dream be?
I suppose I bring my creative set of tools to the picture in my life most of all. I think it's what I lead with. I'm not particularly analytic or not very good with numbers, or I shouldn't say other things I'm not. I should say just the things that I am are, I have a gift and I am able to see worlds that don't exist, and I'm able to galvanize and distill and bring and make them happen, and find the partners and people to manifest that. I think that creativity is not just for creatives. And I think that we're about to experience a moment in time where we're redefining the entire word creative, especially with all the AI that's happening.
Absolutely.
I could sit here and be all defensive about the fact that there's this, ever growing machine out there that can do a ton of what we're capable of doing. Or I could say, oh, is that some small subset relatively of humanity that has these God-given skills or universe-given skills, whatever they are, that's trying to defend in some sort of guild way creativity from the ability of an architect or an accountant or whatever to express themselves in a children's book or make a movie or do whatever. You see, that's what we have to all accept right now, is that creativity is something that is inside of all human beings. It's why we evolve and how we evolve. And so a tool that allows for that is amazing. So I think the creativity that builds experiences that are transformative and that move people that's one of the things that I can do in my life. And I'm fortunate enough to have clients who I can do it for the most privileged people on the planet. And I also, made my balloon animals in Union Square. You don't negotiate the price of a balloon animal, by the way. When somebody comes up, you say it's for tips, whatever you want to put in.
Right.
That means you can give them away.
Yeah.
And you can change a kid's day or a person's day with a freaking piece of balloon,
absolutely.
Right? And so I'd like to think that throughout my life, I've given the same creative services to billionaires and little kids who didn't have any money that day or whose parents couldn't afford to get them the balloon at the whatever. And because when the king is happy or the queen is happy and the people are happy, wonderful things happen. And so in an Area 15, there's the opportunity to make all kinds of people happy. From the wealthiest people in the world come through and have these wonderful moments that they share and say, oh, it was great. I felt as if I'd always been there. And yet they'll see the same from a whole family that comes in on a Saturday afternoon, and you know that they can only afford an ice cream or something like that. They need the dignity to be able to turn up, because we don't know where and who the solution is going to come from.
Yeah.
And what group of people or kids or whoever. It sure as hell isn't going to come from anywhere that we can predict, or the solutions. And with these tools now in people's hands, I guess I'll answer your question by saying, I don't want to create prescriptive things that are done. What I try to create is things that are ever evolving.
Yeah.
And then I want to find the people and teams and partners and incredible people who back such ventures and put the millions of dollars in and have the ability to think and spend on those levels, which I don't. When we create opportunity, we allow for the possibility of experience and transformation.
I really don't believe, and I love AI. I'm exhilarated. The experience I'm having now with it is incredibly creative, because I'm using AI as a tool. I don't believe AI can be originally creative. I think that that's something that we can't expect. We can find imitation variations. So I'm taking my archive, and we've modeled it. I've started with swimwear, and I am creating prompts to reference my swimwear to create new swimwear. And I'm setting it up, and lots of people use AI in different ways, but I'm setting it up to just, with my prompt, just see what it comes up with by taking all of my swimwear and my prompts. What is it going to come up with, right? What will be inspiring for me? And it's me, right? I'm seeing parts of me, but it's not an original thinker. It needed the prompt. Even the prompt has to be a certain kind of prompt to get it to behave in a certain way. So I believe the fear that creative people have about it should stay with protection of original IP and have guardrails and rules for that. But I don't think the fear should ever be that it's going to come up with something new and original. And you can see in a lot of the things that AI produces, you can see, oh, that's a little bit of this and it's a little bit of that. And I've seen that before there. But that explosive idea, that thing, can only be interpreted by you or by me interacting with it as a tool.
And living the life that we live. You ate that day, you walked that day, you saw somebody that day, you cried somebody.
Exactly.
So just the input of knowledge.
Perfectly put together there. That is absolutely the most important part of it.
Thoreau said that, it was said of Thoreau that he measured the length of his writing by the length of his walk, and if he did not walk, he did not write at all. So I think, I'd like to think that we all have original thoughts. The other side of it, I can think, well, but your life, Michael, is a series of prompts and books that you were fed and things that all of those things. Couple of things. One is that, as I just said, I'm reading that book at the same time as I'm experiencing all of these other things. Experiencing. Not reading more books about those experiences, but actually, it was cold that day, but I was reading about the desert, and I got to see what the juxtaposition of feeling it and reading it would be. It's going to be hard for AI to do more than to try to approximate what it might like to be. But I say that with all respect.
And it's only through your interpretation of your experience that AI gets that opportunity. So I worry about all of these creative people who are so afraid.
Yes.
They can't be afraid. They just can't. They have to get involved, understand it, and be creative in that
And
experience.
Norma, you were saying, looking back on 30 years or whatever it is, I actually think that the boundless potential of the human mind to be incredible. I also love the limitations of my mind. I do forget things, lots of things. I forget names. I forget things. And Val was always saying, "What? How could you possibly forget?" Well, because my head was in the my head was in the. I forgot to do this because I was literally dreaming that.
Yeah.
You see, not being able to do it all means that there's a hierarchy of forgetting and finding and all of these things. So I love the boundless potential of my mind. I also love its painful limitations.
Yeah.
Because that means that I remember, I hope, the things that really moved me.
Yeah.
I don't remember everything. Everything is not interesting.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it could be interesting, but it's like Samuel Pepys' diary.
Yeah, but you edit it as you experience it, and you realize that that's not important to me at this time.
So you see, you're wrapping this up perfectly because you answered your own question about the brain and the mind and the psilocybin and all those things. Should we be able to edit out our lives? And maybe for some of us. I'm not sure I'd edit too much out of mine.
I don't think.
I'd love to have the choice, I suppose. Yeah. People should have the choice, but I think I'd stick with most of my cut.
I think you have to keep all the crap there because it's so much a part of why we make decisions now, what we do. I mean, I think all of it is really critical.